Hey guys, my name is Albert Ellison III. I'm a screenwriter, producer, and award-winning director. I'm currently in production and on set of my first feature film, The Profession. In the description below the video, you can find a link to my free screenplay guide, which is an outline of the first 10 lessons in this course and every fundamental element to screenwriting. These are worksheets you can fill out as we discuss the topics, so you might be able to retain the information better. It's my gift to you, so submit your email and you'll find the package in your inbox. Get your hands on the worksheet before we proceed into this episode. Story and structure must marry one another to properly convey your screenplay. We learned that in the last episode. But which tool should you use to structure your story? How do you avoid overbearing formulas and appeal to a universal soul of humanity while still retaining a strong structure? It's quite a challenge, but in this video I'll show you my process and give you the tools necessary to achieve this. First, let's take a look at the widely accepted structure diagrams and look into their problems and the solutions to them. There are many relevant options, such as Freytag's pyramid, the hero's journey, Fitchian curve, Save the Cat, and the 7-point story structure. Let me point out that any of these specific structures could be a perfect fit for your movie you want to write. For instance, the rigorously detailed Save the Cat diagram matches up flawlessly with the structure of Bong Joon-ho's 2019 film Parasite, which is so universally powerful that it even won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. The problem is not with these story structure patterns being used, but with them being enforced as the only way in which a story should or could be told. This is an instant recipe for creating cliché and oversaturated stories. The word I always come back to is intention. It matters not whether you have 3 acts, 5 acts, or 22 points. At the end of the day, you will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So find the format which best conveys your story and be intentional with that. If it fits your story best to follow one of the structures or to create your own path, be intentional to what would be best for your story. Now, in my arguments, I may also be leading writers into a trap by insisting there is no crutch to lean into when they are stuck. Simply find out what works best, I said. But sometimes these structures are created to get writers out of blank zones where they cannot decide what will come next. While I understand the apparent value there within, there is one tool for structure I find most valuable for writers to keep in mind: Dan Harmon's story circle. Here's why I prefer it. Dan Harmon uses this story circle to break away from the traditions of having specific beats you have to hit in your writing, but instead leads you to recognize organic, archetypal forms of progression in story no matter the medium, genre, or length. He notes that stories follow a natural, rhythmic pattern. In society, we see a rhythm of order and chaos. In biology, we see the rhythm of life and death. And in psychology, we see the coexistence of the conscious and unconscious mind. This natural rhythm of the world then informs the way that we structure a story because it is something we recognize. Our society, each human mind within it, and all life itself has a rhythm, and when you play in the rhythm, your story resonates. Dan Harmon expresses these ideas into his story circle, an 8-point cycle that Dan Harmon claims are the fundamental elements of a dramatic narrative. Number 1, a character is in a zone of comfort. Number 2, but they want something. Number 3, they enter an unfamiliar situation. Number 4, they adapt to it. 5th, they get what they wanted. 6th, pay a heavy price for it. 7th, they then return to their familiar situation. 8th, having changed. This story circle creates a sense of forward progression at all times. As the characters chase their desires, they will enter a foreign situation. This unfamiliarity forces them to grow, to adapt to the moment. When they get their hands on what they've been chasing, it must also cost them. This cost gives meaning to the desire. If what they want costs nothing, then it isn't valuable. The higher the price, the higher the value. This progression will create a change within the character, which can be realized as they return to a safe place outside the conflict of the story. Of course, there are exceptions, but rather than just looking at the stories and recognizing a pattern, this method looks at why stories exist and how they relate to the rest of the universe that we live within. This is why Harmon's story circle can be such a strong tool for the writer. Much like Aristotle's musings, Harmon here is looking at why stories universally resonate rather than how to precisely and formulaically produce a narrative. So, if you become stuck in your writing, I would advise using the story circle as a tool to consider where you could go next to maintain consistent momentum and change as to keep your story engaging and progressing. In a future video, I'll be demonstrating some practical applications as to how the story circle was used in both film and television. Remember guys, you can get my free screenplay guide in the description below. Submit your email to receive that as we continue into this recap. There is nothing wrong with fitting your story to a previously established structure diagram, but in pursuing strong structure for your story, rather than reforming your story to a checklist, remember the key function of story: change. Dan Harmon's Story Circle is my recommended structure tool because it steers you away from specific beats you have to hit in your writing, instead encouraging you to recognize organic, archetypal forms of progression in story no matter the medium, genre, or length. Number 1. A character is in a zone of comfort. Number 2. But they want something. Number 3. They enter an unfamiliar situation. Number 4. They adapt to it. Number 5. They get what they wanted. Number 6. They pay a heavy price for it. Number 7. They then return to their unfamiliar situation. Number 8. They have changed. The 8-step story circle encourages constant change in your characters. Change is the bread and butter of story because it's how you explore, test, and argue your philosophical conflict. When there is no change left in your story ends. Constant change equals progression, which equals momentum. Thanks for listening to this episode, guys. I hope it was informative. If you found anything helpful in it, just leave it a thumbs up. But if you thought it could have been better, leave it a thumbs down so that I know to do better next time. I hope to see you all in the next episode. Take care.